Hi, I'm Robert Reed. Recently, a friend of mine was having trouble importing JPEGs into Capture One. She'd received the files from a retoucher, and she could look at them fine in Lightroom and in other apps, but for some reason, they weren't showing in Capture One. So she reached out for help, and we jumped on to Zoom and debugged this problem together. Eventually, we discovered this was a problem I'd never seen before, so I'm going to go through those steps that we went through in the video, because if you ever have problems finding files in Capture One, chances are it's one of the first things that I checked and not the final one, but just in case, maybe the last one will be helpful too. So let's get started. So the first thing she showed me was import, and import wasn't working. We can see that there's a file in the folder, but it's not showing up in the import dialog, and exclude duplicates is not enabled, so there's no issues there. Now, the import dialog is useful if we're importing large numbers of files or copying files from a card into your sessions capture folder and renaming them perhaps, but actually you don't need to use import to add files to your session. All you need to do is copy the files into the session folder. So what I'm going to do is right-click on the selects folder here in the library. Now, on a Mac trackpad, right-clicking is just using 2 fingers to click. So 2 fingers click and then select Show in Finder. So we open this specific folder in the Finder, and then we can drag the files into it. And this is the selects folder, so we're going to open that up. There's the raw file, and here is the JPEG. So I'm just going to copy this over into the selects folder, and we can see that it didn't show up. So the first thing we checked was under the View menu, there's a Global Filters submenu, and this is a bunch of filters for specific file types. And you can tell Capture One basically to ignore certain kinds of files. For instance, you've got both RAWs and JPEGs from the same shoot in your session, then you can just always hide JPEGs or always hide RAW. For instance, let's see what it looks like when you've actually enabled it. If you click that, the RAW files are gone, and when you go back to it, you can see there's a check mark next to always hide RAW files. Now, JPEG isn't turned on, so we know that that filter to disable JPEGs is not enabled in Capture One, so that's not why we're not seeing the file. The next thing I wanted to check were the regular filters in the session. So open the filters tool, and we can see that because these 3 dots are orange, we know there's an active filter. Also, we can see the filter disable button, which is this X in a circle. I'm going to just click this X to turn that filter off, and still no JPEG. And one more thing I checked in Capture One, because it wasn't my version of Capture One, I wanted to verify that she was actually using Capture One Pro. And so I just had her open up the license dialog, and we can see, yes, this is Capture One Pro. You need the full version of Capture One Pro to be able to edit all file types. One more thing to check is in preferences, in image, is you can also enable different types of file editing. Now again, this is Capture One Pro, so you can enable or disable JPEG, TIFF, and PNG editing. Again, this wouldn't prevent you from seeing JPEG files, but if you have a problem where you can see JPEGs but you can't edit them, possibly editing has been disabled here. At this point, I've exhausted all my ideas on how Capture One can hide files from you. And so I'm thinking this is a problem with the file itself. So we went back to the Finder here. So we can see this is a .jpeg, and the Finder is saying this is a JPEG image. I noticed the file name is a bit strange though, because it has a .tiff-4, which is weird, and then .jpeg. So, it appears, this was probably sent to the retoucher as a .tiff, and then they re-exported it just by tacking on the .jpeg instead of changing the name of the file. Just in case this extra .tiff is confusing Capture One, we decided to try removing that and just making it a regular JPEG file. That didn't help. At this point, I actually asked my friend to send me the file itself so I can test this on my own laptop. I went through the same process, same problem on my laptop, and it's always the last place you look, right? So I open this in the preview, and I look in the inspector, in the tools menu, show inspector, and we see it's actually a TIFF. It's not a JPEG, it's been misnamed. So close this down, go back to the Finder, and I hit return on the file name, and then edit the file name to replace JPG with TIF, and click use TIFF. We do want to change the name, we know what we're doing, and it shows up in Capture One. Quick review, if you can't find a file, make sure that the global filters aren't hiding it. Make sure you don't have a regular filter that might be hiding it. Make sure the file is in the right folder so that Capture One can find it. And also make sure, just in case something strange happened, especially if you didn't create the file, someone has sent you the file, maybe double check that the file is actually what it says it is by using the inspector in the preview. Well, that's it for today. I'm Robert Reed, thanks for watching. If you could like this video and subscribe it, I would appreciate it. But that's just noise and you hear from everybody. So pretend I didn't even say that. Thanks a lot. Take care.